Remember last year's amazing trip? That cute first birthday party? All those photos, all those memories can be freed from your phone with a Shutterfly photo book. Rediscover and share your favorite moments with those you love. You'll be amazed how easy it is to make a photo book with Shutterfly and enjoy it for years to come. Get 40% off orders over $29 with code POD40 at Shutterfly.com and make something that means something.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
We watched it last week together, and I think we came out liking it a lot. Then I reread the book, and
doesn't stack up.
No.
So I think the casting and the acting is really, really good in it.
Looks great, and it is a really good story, but it's just so complicated.
That scene as well, it's he's obviously taking the piss, or is he not? I don't know.
I don't think he is.
Oh, okay. Because that scene's hilarious.
It would have probably been the biggest penis that's ever been on any screen.
The film penis is a lot bigger than the book penis.
Oh, can you stop saying penis and looking at me?
Sorry.
Hello. Joining Flixwatcher today remotely, we have Ben.
Hello.
Sam.
Hi there.
And Kobe.
Hello.
And we're here to review Watchmen. Thank you as always to the mighty people for the mighty, mighty tunes. And thanks to Ben from Rockwood Audio for his awesome editing skills.
Please do remember to write a review and rate us on Apple Podcasts and anywhere you can do where you listen to the podcast, because it really does help us.
And you can join in the conversation with us on Twitter
at FlixWatcherPod and on Instagram
at Flixwatcher. Hello and welcome to this episode of Flixwatcher Podcast. Joining us today we have Ben and Sam. If you'd like to say hello and tell our listeners a little bit more about who you are and what you do, please.
Hello, we are Ben and Sam Townsend, two brothers who like to drink beer and talk about the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And we have a podcast called Universally Speaking, where it's a lot of nonsense, some laughs, and some Red Hot Chili Peppers.
So there's a lot of podcasts around that talk about particular bands or particular musicians. What's your approach? Doesn't seem to be going like song by song so much. You can seem a bit more scattergun with your episodes. How do you choose what goes on per episode?
Well, we take the approach of selecting an album, it started off as full albums, but now we have to restrict it to half an album because we
go on too long.
Yeah, we do. But we listen to a song, we talk about it, we go off on wherever it may take us, and if it's not albums, it's live performances. We just respond to it, having just listened to it at full volume. That's one of our
maximum volume.
Yeah, it's got to be maximum volume. So you come out and you are, we tend to be feeling it, and we just let our emotions run wild.
That's a great description.
I was very pleased to see that my favourite song had a whole episode dedicated to it.
Salted
Squeeze, yeah. We used to be quite a lost B-side before, because it was on the soundtrack to Coneheads as well, but before the days of like the internet and Spotify and things like that, it was quite a rare one to get. Yeah.
Well, when you realise that you've got a finite amount of content to talk about, you will end up just focusing on a whole song for 2 hours at some point.
Well, you will, but I do agree. That it's got a cult following. It's a great song. The story of it is very interesting, and we dragged it out for the best part of 2 hours. So
certainly did.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard it. I didn't even know it existed.
Well, listen to the song and then listen to the episode, and then your life will be forever changed.
And why do you guys choose? Why do you talk about Red Hot Chili Peppers as opposed to? There's one episode where you kind of naming your favorite three guitarists, and they were Extreme and / AK Guns N' Roses, Stroke, Velvet Revolver. So why did you choose Red Hot Chili Peppers over those guys?
Well, we actually were in a Red Hot Chili Peppers covers band for a few years. It's called the Lukewarm Chili Peppers. And we were round and about up and down the south coast, weren't we, performing in pubs and clubs?
More side to side.
It was more side to side, you're right, sorry.
Yeah.
I could have gone lateral, I went horizontal.
But prior to that, we had bonded, done some serious brotherly bonding over the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
I was going to say, the tribute band, you didn't have the costume, did you? Or did you?
Well,
Not the costume, no.
We did it differently. The approach was we would play songs like them, but we wouldn't look like them. So what I would do traditionally was wear full Joker face makeup and green hair, a pair of army boots, and quite tight velour or velvet full-length dinner dresses that Sam, your wife's mum, would give to me.
My mother-in-law,
interesting.
Yes.
What did you used to dress up?
I just used to wear literally anything, dresses, fancy
sexy
dress.
Nurse, you were sexy nurse.
I was a very sexy nurse.
What instruments did you guys play?
I played the guitar.
And I was a singer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
key listen. Okay.
We also made a brief and strange appearance on Richard and Judy, didn't we?
Yes, we did.
Oh, wow.
Yes. I don't know how that came about, but we were on Richard and Judy very briefly.
Let's Google Lukewarm Chili Peppers, Richard and Judy. The internet brings up
If
strange
you can't
things.
find it, I can provide you.
Yeah, we've got it on VHS tape.
Okay, so we're talking about Watchmen today, and that was your choice, Ben?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, can you tell us why you chose Watchmen, and then give us a synopsis in 1 minute or less, if you can do?
I chose Watchmen because I was a big fan of the book before the film came out. I was aware of the kind of behind-the-scenes attempts to get it made. I was avid about the build-up to it when the marketing campaign was going on, and the website was updated daily with new images, new songs. It was just the minutiae of the world, which is what I loved about the book. And having seen the film and coming out of it, it wasn't quite what I wanted, and I just thought it'd be an interesting film to talk about. So, here I go. Are you ready? Is the countdown on? I've written this down because it's a difficult film to summarise.
Is it 60 seconds for both things, or
just for the synopsis?
Oh, fine.
Okay. We are in an alternate timeline in 1980s America, and the world stands on the brink of nuclear war as the US and the Soviet Union face off across the globe. A fractured timeline lets us explore the history of costumed heroes, the Minutemen, in the 1940s, and the creation of Dr. Manhattan, the only truly superpowered being in the story. We then move through the years as a new group of heroes fill the void left by the Minutemen before they are outlawed by the Keene Act in 1977. When the comedian is murdered, Rorschach, a masked vigilante who now operates outside the law, suspects that someone is killing former heroes and takes it upon himself to warn his own teammates. But all is not as it seems. As events unfold and the threat of nuclear war escalates, it becomes clear that ex-adventurer, billionaire Adrian Veidt is behind the mystery, and he has a plan that might just save the world.
Well, very well done.
That's very eloquent. That's one of the best synopses we've ever had.
I like
that's basically how I would have read it.
I do like hearing people's when we enforce like a minute, people suddenly get like panicky, and it's just like you don't need to go into that much detail. That was great, by the way. But you can just kind of say, mass superheroes are made vigilantes.
Yeah,
let's talk
stuff
about
happens, and it doesn't make much sense unless you've read the book.
Well, I mean, let's talk about it then. So, the graphic novel versus the film. You said you were disappointed, so highlight why that is.
I think they did the best they could. I think Zack Snyder did the best he could within the purview of 2009 when you're trying to cram a huge and multifaceted and incredibly detailed story into 2 hours.
2.5 hours it was.
Yeah, for then the extended version puts in a bit more. It loses the essence of the book for me, which is the relationships between the heroes. You see them, you have the roots of them, and you have the kind of end game, but you don't have everything in the book, the extension of the world, the detail that's in the story. What you get is essentially a Zack Snyder film, where the emphasis has to be on the action in order to bring people in, and the emphasis is not on the action on the book. Look, I really enjoyed it. I mean, we went to the cinema to see it, didn't we?
We did,
And we came out liking it a lot, and we watched it last week together, and I think we came out liking it a lot. Then I reread the book, and
doesn't stack up.
No.
So if you hadn't read the book, the graphic novel, can you take it from that point of view? Would you enjoy it as a story and as a film outside of that purview?
I think it's a bit. I think I would have been a bit confused. I watched it today and I tried to take that stance. And there's a lot goes on, like the opening musical montage where there's a lot of world building over times we're changing. I looked at it from the point of view, if I haven't read the book, and I thought it looks fantastic, but I'm not sure that I would fully understand what the world was.
Well,
just over that 5 minutes.
I've not read the book, and I've seen it. So this is like my third time now, and I think I get it now. Or I think, like the first time I saw it at the cinema, and because it's a Zack Snyder film, just there's so much going on visually that I was just kind of like, your eyeballs are a little bit scorched, and there's a lot to digest, and it is about now where I was like, oh, okay, I think I can kind of get it all, and the opening credits I still think are like amazing. Like that bit is still. It's a really good way of trying to cram in like a huge amount of a timeline in a really creative way.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Actually, I've read the book once before we went to see it together, and by the end of the credit, the opening credits and the fight scene, I was fully in. I just think it's such a good first 5 or 10 minutes of a film. It's probably not that much, but it's brilliant. And every time I watch it, I feel that way, and I feel the same, and it's just enough, I think, to make me really want to love it. But by the end of it, I always find myself wondering exactly what the hell is going on. So, but I just think it looks great, and it is a really good story, but it's just so complicated.
So do you think it's the fact that it kind of loses people, and there's like double crossings, and it's how the reveal happens? Because I read the book once, and I rebought it, and I was going to try and read it ahead of today, but just didn't get around to it to do a comparison. But I can't remember the reveal of Ozymandias being the owner of Pyramid Enterprises, because that seemed kind of clunky in this. But I can't remember if that's how it transpires in the book. Yeah, because that was my biggest kind of bugbear, is like trying to take it from someone who's not embedded with the source material as much as you guys might be.
It's in there, and there is that scene where Rorschach and Nite Owl are in the office, in Ozymandias' office, clunkily breaking the code and guessing the password. Just leave your book out. That's your password.
Yeah, I mean that's wonderful how that
the Donald Trump of passwords.
Exactly. Yeah. That's there, and what the good bits of the film is when it's taking those things and putting them on screen as per the book. For me, it's just not in enough detail, and the major change is, of course, the ending of the book and the thrust of the story of the book and the thrust of the story of the film about how Ozymandias is going to save the world. It's two different plots. And I think that's where the film actually beats the book, because the way it's done in the book, I always found it a little bit silly.
Well, the squid. Yeah. The giant squid.
Yeah. Yeah, the genetically engineered squid.
But I think there's people complain against about true stories, and also they they compare things with like a source material to films. But there's very rarely you can really get, as you said, the Watchmen is such a dense graphic novel, and I mean straight away when going through this graphic novel, it's like, okay, ignore all the Minutemen stuff, ignore all the stuff with the pirates, the guys on the desert island, and that takes out like half the kind of thing. But I think it's almost like a thankless task putting something onto the screen from a source novel like that, isn't it? And I think when you look at the most successful ones, like Trainspotting, that's Trainspotting book versus Trainspotting the film. There's like 10% of the book, but it takes the essence of it and puts it into the screen, and everyone's like, "Yeah, this is a great film."
Okay. Okay.
Have you guys read Trainspotting? Helen, you strike me as someone who's read Trainspotting.
Yeah, I guess the things with novels and graphic novels is slightly different because there's just so much in books that isn't given visually that you just chop out, and you can still kind of get the gist of it. But if you're in a position where everything's kind of presented of what could be a storyboard, or if you just animated the graphic novel, it would all be there. It's kind of different if you've seen that, because I think when you watch a film and you've read the book, your mind kind of fills in the gaps if it needs to, or goes, okay, I can kind of see where that goes. But because your mind's seen everything visually and in order, it's maybe a little bit more like, well, where was the bit with that I saw? So I don't know whether there's some kind of weird like psychology behind like seeing words and seeing pictures. So yeah, I don't know. Famously, Moore hates it, doesn't he? He's just like, I'm never going to watch it.
Oh god, yeah, he won't have his name associated with it at all.
Yeah, he's just like, oh well, if he ever does watch it and says it's not the worst thing it could be, then he'd be happy. But
it's definitely not the worst thing it could be, and it's very successful in a lot of things that it does. Some of the recreations of the characters and some of the key moments are brilliantly done. It's just you're right. There's those missing chunks. It lacks the subtlety. The book's got so much there. It is so dense, and the film is just in your face. And it has a lot of background detail that's taken directly from the book, but there's no subtlety to this film at all.
It's kind of an understatement, isn't it? Really.
But as a huge fan as you are, I think that they couldn't really have won. There's no way that you can do something like this and please everyone. You can't please like the real fans of the graphic novel, and actually you can't make it that appealing to a newcomer, because it's
so much to it.
There's so much to it. Yeah. So I think they did actually a really good job of trying to put everything in, and some of the vehicles they used, like the opening credits and all of those things, to try and squeeze as much as they could into the time that they had. So for someone like me who's only read the book once, I actually really enjoy it up to the final kind of act. I just sort of lose it there every time, but I do really enjoy it, and I really enjoy like Snyder's direction. I think like the first fight scene is brilliant. It's just, every time I watch it, I feel every blow, and it's just fantastic. So I think maybe it's just best for someone like me who's only read it once and isn't that invested, but knows enough about it to probably be able to follow it just about.
It's a bit too Zack Snyder.
Okay, Dr. Manhattan's there. He's a big blue thing. Yeah. There's some bits of Mars.
I don't need to know.
Okay, the comedian, he dies. The smiley face badge. Fine, go. Rorschach. Fine.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
I guess for me, because the world is so well designed that you're prepared to kind of jump in and go with it. I think for me, what happens is that it gets to a certain point where they've suddenly realised that, oh shit, we've gone over like 2.5 hours. We need to actually finish the story. And it's kind of like the third part feels a lot more rushed. So I think after the kind of jailbreak, after that gets a bit like that. I think that's probably for me the least part that I'm sort of on board with, and everything else up to then I was kind of like fine and getting along with, and then it just feels really rushed and squashed, as if they're like, oh shit, we've got to tell the ending now.
Wrap this up.
Just people die.
I can't remember what the director's cut is like, because I've seen that. It's like 3 hours and 15, isn't it?
Yeah,
or maybe a bit longer than that.
I think it includes I haven't seen it, but I understand it includes the Tales of the Black Freighter stuff, which I've got as a separate. I bought that as a separate disc back in the day, and also on that disc was the book Under the Hood that Hollis Mason, the first Nite Owl, writes.
Yeah,
there's an in-universe documentary about him writing the book, which is great. It's really interesting and really well done. So in the extended version, they cut in the Tales of the Black Freighter, which was always a bit of the book that I didn't actually like that much. It's just a parallel story that kind of mirrors the Ozymandias plot. I don't think they put in much more. I mean, I speak as a man who's never seen it.
Yeah,
I don't think they put in much more actual, story.
If you haven't seen it, what hope have we got?
Well, yeah.
I need to rewatch it, but that was like 10 years ago when I saw it, and I hadn't read the book at the time. So I need to, and this is the first time I've seen this version of it. I've only seen, this is second time I've seen this film. So once was the director's cut version, once was this version 10 years apart. So I can't remember what the differences were. The key plot points are in there. Manhattan's massive cock, and then there's like explosion and Rorschach. But yeah, I need to revisit that to see what the difference is.
What do you think about the Dr. Manhattan effect? The CG, the fully CG person.
It was. Well, Alan might have more to say, but because it masks. What's that actor's name? Billy Crudup.
Crudup.
Yeah.
Crudup. Call him Billy.
Isn't he one of your favourites?
Billy C. Yeah, well, I know mainly from Almost Famous, but he's also in 20th Century Women and amongst other things. But it's kind of interesting. I was reading about how they made him kind of have that glow, and basically was sort of lit up at the same time as he was like green suited and stuff. Yeah, I guess it's kind of quite a hard thing to put on the screen and get people to believe that, he's kind of this, what is he, like the most powerful thing in the world, and was like blown apart and then put himself back together.
I think 90% of Dr. Manhattan in the film is really well done. The blowing apart scene, the reconstruction scene, I think is the blowing apart scene, especially when he's panicking, I think is great. And 90% of the look of him is fine. And unfortunately, the worst recreation of him is when you first see him, when he's absolutely massive, and then he shrinks down in a really weird way. I'm not so taken by that.
I think if you to do the film nowadays, I think it would. I don't think it'd be that much different, to be honest with you. It'd probably be more finessed, but I think it still kind of stands up from what a fully CGI person could be in 2009 versus 2020. I don't think it's that bad. And he is the most striking character from the comics brought to life, and I think that's well done. And one thing I really liked actually was how they did Rorschach's face.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
And how the ink blot was moving all the time. I thought that was a really, really cool thing.
What they did as well is what you can't do in the comic. It's very hard lines on Rorschach's mask, and what they do in this version is they have little ink bleed from the edges. It's such a good effect.
Yeah. Have you guys seen the TV show? I'm not going to spoil anything in the TV show.
No, I haven't.
No. What's the matter with you guys? Well, Helen?
I haven't. Is it HBO? Is it on HBO?
It's on now. It's on Sky Now TV.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's HBO. Yeah. Okay. Let's get off the TV series. Apart from to say, like, what's the first episode? And if you're not interested at all, because it was genuinely last year, it was my favorite. I can't remember. I put it number 1 or 2 with Chernobyl, but it was just like an absolutely astonishing TV show. So do watch it. The story is not the same as the book. It's a whole different story.
I'll start it. I'll start tonight.
Watch it without Googling any episodes beforehand. Watch it from the start.
Exactly.
So a couple of things that I'd written down. I think for me I think this is probably a thing with Snyder's film in general, but it kind of lacked an emotion and feeling a little bit, in that I don't quite know what the tone is in the obviously in the book, but everything is so stylized and so in your face that there's kind of points when you kind of should feel emotion and you don't, and there's other times.
Did you feel emotion during the Hallelujah scene?
Oh God, don't please.
That scene as well. It's he's obviously taking the piss, or is he not? I don't know.
I don't think moments... he is.
Oh, okay. Because that scene's hilarious. But there's a bit where she obviously finds out who her dad is, and that's kind of meant to be a big moment, but it's kind of not, because it's just like, well,
yeah, it just all kinds of goes. Yeah, I know what you mean. It's just you just sort of going along at the same kind of pace, the same kind of, and I mean, I do like the performance from Billy Crudup there, because he's always got that flat Dr. Manhattan delivery, that he actually does appreciate life and can come back to Earth. Because out of all this insanity and chaos, someone like Laurie is being created. I think that's a really well performed bit. Yeah, but I think also
the tone of the film though doesn't. I think the casting in it is brilliant, because what they've done is they've picked actors that are sort of recognisable in that you're like, oh yeah, I kind of like that guy's work, or I've seen her before and they're pretty good, but they're not that recognisable that you know them for another role. So I think the casting and the acting is really, really good in it. But as the direction, there's just like one tone, and it's just like violent, in your face, loud, grim. Like there's a lot of grimness, like people being fed to dogs and chipped out over your head. So it's either just like really, really grim, or there's like a gap where there should be humour and emotion, but he's just kind of forgot to add that.
Yeah, I think
I don't remember it being as visceral as it was, because that chip fat scene, for example, and the whole kind of scene in the prison, that was just like rough. Some of that, I just like, good God, I can't remember that.
I know, and then
dark.
before you know it, you're on Mars in like pure sci-fi mode, and that just always throws me. And I think that's where I start to lose it, really, because I always enjoy the full on visceral element of everything about it, the violence, and I enjoy that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, hang on a minute, what's going on here? That's where I start to wane a little bit, and then it's a downhill slope for me, I'm afraid.
Trajectory from there.
I think the tone, I think you're right, Helen, the tone of the film is, the thing is, Zack Snyder is such a huge fan of the book. And previously you had people like Paul Greengrass or Aronofsky or Terry Gilliam, who might have brought more of a nuanced take on it. Especially Terry Gilliam. Imagine Terry Gilliam's Watchmen.
Well, he said it was unfilmable.
Yeah.
That was his take.
Turns out it pretty much is.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's very flat and it's very stylised, and that's Zack Snyder's way. And it doesn't serve the film, doesn't serve the book particularly well. But you're right, some of the casting is absolutely phenomenal. Patrick Wilson is
Matthew Goode.
Malin Åkerman.
Malin Åkerman, yeah. The only person I couldn't really, of the main Watchmen, I couldn't really remember, I've not seen him since, was the person who plays Rorschach.
Jackie Earle Haley.
Well, he was Freddy in the new Nightmare on Elm Street, and he was also in Little Children with Luke Wilson before this.
Oh, yeah, I've not seen any of those films.
He kind of does like TV. Has he done a bit of TV stuff recently? I kind of want to say that he has.
I think the Rorschach, the person who played Rorschach, I thought was fantastic.
Yeah, it's perfect casting, I think, for that. Yeah, it's just
and
brilliant.
And Matthew Goode as well as Ozymandias. So it was like the Malin. I'd seen those all, like Patrick Wilson, Matthew Goode. They're all kind of on the cusp of being probably B or C listers. And yeah, so I think you're right. They're kind of like, I know them ish. They're more than character actors, but they're not like their own.
That's
not megastars.
The big casting problem I have is actually Matthew Goode.
Really?
Ozymandias. He's too young and he looks too inexperienced. Ozymandias.
Oh, Carla Gugino as well as Miss Jupiter's mum.
Yes, still Spectre I now.
Yeah.
But Ozymandias should be a man of the world. He's built up to this moment throughout his life, and he's very much portrayed like that in the book. And Matthew Goode's just too young, and he's doing a weird kind of faux German accent, which is unexplained, and it's completely unconvincing. And I remember coming out of cinema saying, I thought Nite Owl was perfectly done, Rorschach was perfectly done. The comedian is absolutely spot on.
Oh yeah.
But the linchpin of the film is Ozymandias. He's the thing that the whole thing rests on with his big end game, and I was completely unconvinced by it.
I think for me that added to the whole confusion as well, because he was far too young.
He was 12.
But it just doesn't make any sense. That's the problem. And when you are coming to it with new eyes, you do. For anyone who hasn't read the book, I think this is going to be a completely lost cause. And he adds to that for me. He makes it
baby in a Batman suit.
He makes it very difficult to follow.
Well, the way that I got it from watching it this time round is that the other ones are kind of like a little bit sort of overweight / lost their way / a little bit shabby, and the fact that he was still kind of like really good looking and still kind of like in shape was because a testament of his brilliant mind, and the fact that he's kind of the sharper one who managed to outwit them more. So it didn't bother me that much, but then again, I don't have the pre-association that came with that, so I just kind of took it that he was the one who looked kind of like as fresh as he was those years ago because he was so brilliant and evil, and I don't know, was doing something with Egyptians or something. I don't know, the
I think
eternal life.
The pyramids and stuff, pyramid in Antarctica.
And when we come to the scores, I'm going to have to think about this, because I'm going to have to think about it as just judging it on the film is what we should be doing here, isn't it? And I brought so much in from having read the source material a few times.
I think that's often a dangerous thing, especially when I've had like frank discussions with friends when when something's not represented in the source material. Like with Marvel, for example, I've read very, very few Marvel comics. So I'm coming at it with just like, yeah, this is really cool. But some people are like really pissed off at how Merlin was portrayed in Iron Man 3, for example. I'm like, I don't care. This for me, it's fine. So I think maybe allude to the version of you that hadn't read the book.
Yeah, I think you're right.
What you take, but give us your insights to the real life you now as well.
But go with your heart ultimately.
Yeah, don't be too harsh.
I'll go on Book Reader podcast to talk about.
But when you're making a film like that and like this, they have to consider the newcomer more so than the person.
Of course they do, yeah.
Because there's such a much larger portion of the audience. So.
And I think it's certainly when it is just one book as well, or like a series like Harry Potter, they have to get things right, and then people can kind of relax a bit. But when it's something like Marvel, where there's like different timelines, there's different people, there's different versions of the Avengers, there's all these different things, then to be so angry about how one interpretation of a character isn't what you want it to be, I think it's a bit like a, come on, mate.
Yeah.
But if there's anything else, should we head to the scores?
Yeah, let's do it.
Hello, I'm Sam Pay.
And I'm Martin Zotz-Orstwick.
And together we host a show called Song by Song, where we deal with the music of Tom Waits. We've been going since 2015. Every week we talk about a new track. We've made our way through 15 seasons so far of his music.
And now we're going back to the early years. And if you haven't listened to Tom Waits before, it's not the growly stuff. It's not the stuff where he's hitting an automobile with a bone for percussion. It's a nice, easy way into his music.
If that sounds like something you would be interested in, you should check out our website, songbysongpodcast.com, or put Song by Song into your podcatcher of choice.
Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
Welcome to the Flixwatcher scores. All of our scores are out of 5. You may have decimal places if you wish, and we will start with you, please, Ben, with your recommendability.
God, I wish it could be higher. I've gone down, Sam, since we even watched it last week.
Wow.
2.5, I think.
Oh.
I think.
And this is you coming to it blind.
Yeah, just having watched the film. I imagine I watched the film for the first time.
Okay.
I don't think I can recommend it that highly.
Oh, I feel eternally generous. I'm going to go for a 3.1. It's extremely long and very difficult to follow, but I still recommend it because I think it's got there's so many good things about it just to watch for the first time. So 3.1 for me. Helen.
Well, I did not think at this point I would be the one with the highest recommended. I'm going to give it a 4. As a comparison, Avengers I'd recommend to everyone. This, not so much. But I think it's really interesting, and there's a lot to kind of get out of it. And I sort of admire his ambition really a lot with this, on taking on something which is clearly, way beyond what he probably imagined or experienced, but it does manage to create this its entire world. And there are obviously some weird bits, the Hallelujah sex scene, but I kind of like the characters in it, and I like the acting, and I think going into it for this time round, I was expecting to not enjoy it as much as I did, and I don't know whether it's because I've now seen it a few times that I kind of understand it a bit more. And it's kind of interesting because, you know, he made this in 2009, which I think we'd had maybe Iron Man, so he was quite ahead of
some Spider-Mans.
Yeah.
Are you talking about Marvel specifically?
Yeah, and you know, it's an 18 as well, which was kind of a brave thing to do. Which, had it maybe been made a little bit later, the studios would have pushed it to be less violent so that it would have had the same success of kind of the Avengers films. So it's really interesting. I don't think it's perfect, and you know, the tone isn't there, but if someone hadn't seen it and they kind of liked comic book films, or they'd like the Dread recent one that came out a few years ago, I'd say this is kind of for them.
So what was that, 4?
4, yeah.
I'm going to go for 4.1. I enjoyed it, and it's good to revisit it post watching the TV show. I'm half convinced, I'm half tempted to watch the TV show again, but there's not enough time. There's lots of things I want to watch at the moment, which I'm not getting around to, so that might have to go on the back burner. But I do want to read the book again, just to kind of reframe my mind. But I think it's fine. I think it gets a bit murky with the storyline towards the end, and I think the clangor of how they reveal it's Ozymandias behind everything is a bit like, it's not even a plot twist, because it just doesn't really make any sense as to how that comes about, how they've figured it out, I think. But apart from that, it's a bit of a romp.
Nice.
So, repeat viewing score. Ben?
Well, I have watched this a few times, so I'm going to have to say reasonably high.
But will you watch it? How often will you watch it again in the future? That's got to play into it.
Yeah, it will. I think I will watch it again. When I recommended it, though, I just can't recommend it to everybody. But
Sure.
I myself will watch it. So 4.
Sam?
Well, I actually think that the rewards for watching it again are vast. There's so much detail. The more you watch it, the more you'll understand it, and the more you'll take from it. So I'm 4.6. I'm high.
Okay, Helen?
It's long. You know, this non-director's cut is 2 hours 43 minutes. You know, it's a long film. So in terms of re-watching, it's not going to be a regular watch. So I saw it at the cinema, and then I probably saw it maybe about 5 years ago. Am I going to watch it again? I don't know. I don't know why I would, but then I guess if someone was to say, I've never seen it, do you want to watch it with me? I'd probably say yes. And I think you kind of have to watch it at least twice, I guess, if you sort of enjoyed it the first time. The more times you watch it, the more you'll understand, and you'll kind of get the gist. I give it 3.
The length is a concern, and today I thought I'll have one more watch of it. I watched it on 1.4 speed, and it really raced through the story.
I'm desperately concerned now that I gave it a 4.6 that I'm going to have to watch it again. So I think I might.
You might do.
Yeah, I might have scored it too highly.
The rest of your life.
I'm definitely not going to lower it, but I'm not going to be watching it tomorrow. That's for sure.
I'll definitely watch it again, not often because it's long, but I think I might lean it. Next rewatch will be the director's cut to compare and contrast after I've read the book again. So I'm going to get quite a high score based on needing to watch it again rather than
watching
it frequently. So let's go 3.8, I think. Small screen score. Ben?
I think it's going to go a bit lower here because I quite enjoy the effects. They built a lot of the sets were built. The New York streets were built, and they cleverly filmed around corners and stuff like that. And I think the CGI is quite stylized, and I quite like the whole look of the film. And I certainly enjoyed it when we saw it at the cinema. So I would go And again, the thing is, my TV's quite big, so I'm going to go for a 3.
3.
Sam.
I don't know whether I'm overscoring it. I think it's still enjoyable, but it's a film that does really flourish on the big screen. So I'm a 3.9 here. 3.9. Okay. I'm saying 3.9.
That's high.
That's high.
Helen.
Yeah, so I just think there's so much going on that it doesn't all quite fit into a small screen. And, you know, you just haven't seen Watchmen if you haven't seen a giant blue penis on a cinema screen. Really, have you?
Especially 60-foot Dr. Manhattan.
Wow.
That's a really big boy.
See, I don't get it. So, like, sometimes he has pants and sometimes he doesn't have pants. So I get that, like, he obviously has to wear pants when he's going on TV.
Or to Vietnam.
But then he kind of wears, yeah. But it's like, well...
But they are the rules, aren't they? If you're big and blue, you have to wear pants in Vietnam or on telly.
Also, when he's striding through Vietnam in his V-shaped black pants, they stick on the Apocalypse Now music, which is a little bit heavy-handed. But yeah, I think if you'd have had him in no pants in that particular scene...
Ride of the Valkyrie, maybe. Yeah. The Apocalypse Now music.
Everyone knows it as that.
I think if you'd have had Dr. Manhattan's Willy that big on screen...
At that point.
Yeah.
It would have probably been the biggest penis that's ever been on any screen.
The film penis is a lot bigger than the book penis.
How can you stop saying penis and looking at me?
Sorry.
Yes. For that alone, I think you deserve to see it on the screen. I do think, because it's so stylised and it's so in your face, that it is one of those that does deserve to be seen on the screen. So yeah, I'm going to give it 3.
I'm going to go a bit lower. 2.5. I think I've only ever seen it on a small screen. It looks quite good, but I would like a rewatch to happen. I would like a rewatch to be on the big screen. I think it would look quite cool. So for that reason, 2.5. I think. Engagement score. Ben.
Well, I just said I watched it at 1.4 speed, so I think it looks great. Despite the fact that I've moaned and bitched about it, and I suggested this film, I wasn't looking at my phone while I was watching it, so I'm going to give it a reasonably generous 3.5.
Sam?
But I always feel engaged by this film up to the final act, so I'm going to give it a solid 3.8, and I think it deserves that for all of its good points that, for me, vastly outweigh its bad points. 3.8.
Helen?
So this was like my third watch, so it wasn't as engaged as the first time, and obviously seeing it in the cinema, I was completely engaged to the point where I had no idea what was going on, even though obviously I was watching it with my eyes and my brain. So yeah, it's kind of a funny one. I think if you're not paying attention, then you're going to get so much less out of it. But the fact that it's quite long, and some of the bits you're a bit like, just get to the bit where he does the thing.
Which bit's that? Blow Rorschach.
Yeah, the mouse thing is a problem. Yeah.
So I'm going to go for, I think it's 4. Just feels right. I've got no rhyme or reason other than that.
I think the last time I watched it before this was at Christmas, so I kind of have it as one of those, like,
that's not bad,
Christmas
actually.
film.
Yeah, forget It's a Wonderful Life. I'm sticking Watchmen now.
That gives an overall score of 3.55000 exactly. So we go to Twitter at this point. Just to everyone listening, if you listen for the first time, do follow us on Twitter at FlixWatcherPod, because we do put a shout out before we record. And an example is this case, we're reviewing Watchmen with Ben Townsend and Sam from Universally RHCP. Have you seen it? Tell us your thoughts and then score out of 5 stars for a shout out on Flixwatcher. We had a few responses here. Ben, do you want to take us out with the first one?
Yeah, we got Lee Thomas saying, having never read the comic, I didn't know what to expect. Ended up enjoying it and not quite understanding the negativity. Interesting characters and well directed, if overly long. 3 smiley faces out of 5. So Nice little touch there.
Very positive.
Sam?
I read the graphic novel and loved it. I watched the film and it was okay, but the director's cut was much better. 4 out of 5.
Alex Elliott.
Yeah, that's
from?
Alex Elliott.
Alex Elliott.
So,
Helen?
So this one is from Lee TB. Atrocious. I can't find a half a star emoji on my phone, but there you have it.
Someone did later suggest the poo emoji.
Oh, that was me, bringing the tone down. Maybe you could have used that, but yeah, it's not for everyone, is it, Watchmen?
And we have one last one where they link to their review of Watchmen on Letterboxd, which I think is a bit of a cop-out. But yes, this is from Last Film Scene. I think it may be more appreciated as a superhero, as more superhero comic book films and TV shows are released and their universes expand. And so the general viewer becomes more versed in superhero comic lore and tropes. Wasn't really a review there, it's just a statement.
They did give it 4 stars.
Yeah,
the
but that was
stars
the link
were
to the
there.
Letterboxd.
I know. We don't go there. We haven't got time.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to read your whole review. But Ben and Sam, thank you very much for joining us. Can you tell us where we can find your podcast online and tell people where to find you, and then we'll say goodbye?
Certainly. BenTownsendMusic.com is where you can find everything about Universally Speaking, the Red Hot Chili Peppers podcast, or email me on bentownsendmusic@hotmail.com.
Struggling to remember your own email address. That's a bit strange. Sam?
I am at Stack Townsend on Twitter, and that's the only place you can find me.
Well, thank you very much, guys. And everyone listening, if you do like Red Hot Chili Peppers, you want to get a bit more in-depth discussion with Ben and Sam, do head to their podcast, Universally Speaking. It's very good. And thank you very much, guys, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's been great. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Enjoyed this episode of Flixwatcher podcast? Why not leave us a 5-star review on iTunes? You can also follow us at FlixWatcherPod on Twitter, and we're at FlixWatcher on Instagram. Thanks as always to the mighty people for their mighty, mighty tunes, and Ben from Rockwood Audio for his awesome editing skills. If you're looking to get your podcast edited as sweet as this, get in touch with Ben, and that's Rockwood, ROKK Wood Audio. Tell them Flixwatcher sent you.
You just heard a Stripped Media production.
These are violent criminals, so they're not going to go down easy.
ABC Tuesdays.
Let's get this done.
The Rookie is back.
We have 2 new rookies starting today.
Howdy.
Being a cop is stressful 24/7. Every year on the job is different.
And Training Day.
We have a serial killer at large.
Never ends.
We need an ambulance!
The Rookie. All new Tuesdays on ABC and stream on Hulu.